Stop. You don't belong on this stage. Stand back. You're not on the list." The professor's voice cut through the auditorium like a blade, freezing the little girl in place. She had practiced for months, dreamed for years. And now, right at the moment she was finally ready, she was being turned away in front of everyone. Whispers spread. Eyes narrowed. Her mother stood helplessly at the door, gripping her cart as the humiliation unfolded. But this moment wasn't the end. It was the spark. Because what happened next transformed everything in a way none of them expected. Comment your city below. The little girl always felt safest in the world of sound. Soft vibrations humming through the hallway floors. The faint echo of the choir practicing after school. And the steady rhythm of her mother's footsteps as she cleaned the building at dawn, these were the things that grounded her. Being a quiet black girl in a predominantly white school meant she was often treated as if she were invisible. But music gave her a home no one could take from her. Every morning she arrived long before other students. Her mother, the school janitor, pushed her mop bucket down silent corridors while the girls slipped into the auditorium, sitting at the foot of the stage. The golden morning light filled the empty space, giving her a sense of belonging she rarely felt outside its walls. She dreamed of one day standing beneath the bright lights during the school's annual talent showcase, letting her voice rise into the rafters. But dreams weren't something she openly shared. The professor who ran the showcases, stern man with crisp clothes and an even crisper tone, walked past her each morning without so much as a glance. He treated her mother with the same cold dismissiveness, occasionally leaving muddy footprints without apology, knowing she would clean them. He saw only positions professor above. Janitor Bell and the girl absorbed his silent message. Some people were allowed to shine. Others were expected to stay in the background. Still, she practiced every night in their small apartment, singing softly so as not to disturb neighbors. Her mother listened while folding laundry, smiling proudly even as exhaustion pulled at her shoulders. The girl's voice carried a warmth that filled the room, a whisper of hope in a life that had more struggle than ease. Whispers from classmates, subtle looks from teachers, and lingering questions about why someone like her would audition for the showcase had begun to build. She tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the moment she would finally step onto that stage. She believed that if she sang with everything she had, the world would have to hear her whether it wanted to or not. The talent showcase rehearsals began with a simple rule. Everyone would perform before the judges to determine their placement in the program. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as students laughed, practiced, and compared costumes. But when the girl walked in, the chatter slowly dimmed. Eyes followed her, some curious, some dismissive, some openly irritated that she dared show up at all. The professor barely acknowledged her. He handed out numbers to the performers, skipping her twice before finally tossing hers onto a chair. It slid toward the floor, landing at her feet. She picked it up silently, ignoring the smirk on his face. Her mother watched from the doorway with a mixture of pride and worry, gripping the handle of her cleaning cart. She knew what that look meant. She had felt it all her life. One by one, students took the stage. Their families filled the first few rows, cheering loudly. The girl stayed near the back, humming softly to calm the tightness in her chest. She reminded herself that she belonged here no matter what anyone thought. When her turn finally came, a professor didn't call her name. Instead, he announced a break and walked off the stage, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the room. A few students snickered. Others simply walked away. Her mother approached the professor quietly, asking if there had been a mistake. He didn't even look at her when he answered. "There's no point wasting time," he said. "This showcase is for students who are actually prepared." The words were loud enough for the room to hear. A hush fell. The girl felt her throat tighten. Not from embarrassment, but from a familiar ache one she had seen in her mother's eyes too many times. Her mother opened her mouth as if to speak, but he waved her away. "It's best she sits this one out," he continued. "We have standards." The implication was heavy. It wasn't her voice he doubted, it was her place. The girl stepped back, her small body stiff with confusion and hurt. She had spent months practicing. She knew every note, every breath, every rise and fall of the melody. But in this room, none of that mattered. A few students whispered apologies, too afraid to speak loudly. Others looked relieved she wasn't performing. The girl felt the air close in around her. The stage she loved becoming a place of humiliation. Her mother knelt beside her, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. "You don't have to prove anything to him," she whispered. But the girl couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her was breaking. That evening, she went home in silence. Her mother offered comfort, but even her warm embrace couldn't reach the deep hurt the girl felt. For the first time, she questioned whether her dream was foolish, whether people like her were never meant to stand in the spotlight. But the next morning changed everything. Substitute judge arrived for final evaluations. One, who believed every student deserved a chance. She asked the girl to sing. The professor rolled his eyes, but he couldn't refuse. The girl stepped onto the stage. The auditorium held its breath. This was her moment. When she opened her mouth, nothing came out at first. The memory of the professor's words echoed in her mind. "We have standards." Her hands trembled. Her throat felt tight. The substitute judge watched her kindly, waiting. The professor tapped his clipboard impatiently. Then she inhaled. The first note rose, soft but steady. The room changed instantly. Her voice carried a purity that silenced every whisper, every doubt, every hidden prejudice. It grew stronger with each breath, swelling with emotion she had held inside for years. The auditorium, once cold and hostile, seemed to warm around her. Even the professor's eyes widened, his confident smirk fading into disbelief as her voice filled the air with undeniable beauty. She sang with everything she had, with pain, with hope, with the quiet determination of a child who had finally been given a chance to be heard. Her mother stood frozen in the doorway, tears forming as she watched her daughter rise above every insult, every dismissal, every unspoken barrier. When the final note lingered and faded, the room was silent, not out of judgment, but awe. The professor was the first to break, his face flushed with embarrassment. The substitute judge clapped. Then others followed, slowly at first, then louder. The girl stood there, breathless, for the first time. The silence was in her favor. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. News of her performance spread quickly. Teachers who had barely noticed her before now spoke of her remarkable talent. Students who once whispered about her background now replayed videos of her rehearsal online. Even parents who had overlooked her began asking who she was. But the shift wasn't about sudden admiration, it was about uncomfortable recognition. Her voice had forced people to confront the bias they never admitted existed. The professor tried to claim credit, insisting he had always supported her, but no one believed it. The substitute judge submitted her name for a regional showcase, praising her resilience and natural gift. And for the first time, the girl walked into school feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. It's possibility. Her mother watched proudly as her daughter grew into her confidence. She had spent her life being unseen, overlooked, dismissed because of her role and her skin. But seeing her daughter rise from humiliation to triumph filled her with hope she hadn't dared to feel in years. The girl realized her voice carried more power than she ever imagined. It wasn't just about singing. It was about standing tall in a world that often tried to make her small. Her talent forced people to listen, but her courage made them reflect. Not every prejudice disappeared. Not every stare softened. But something had opened a conversation, a shift. A reminder that brilliance can come from the very places people overlook. How many more children must fight to be heard before the world finally listens? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories.